Just a disclaimer, this is my first time to try to set up this crazy double camera thing and do a little interview conversation, so the camera angles may be totally weird and not make any sense at all. But hey, I'm trying. I'm just learning how to do this whole vlogging thing. Today I have something really special, really fun, and I had met this guy, Tony. Tony was your last name?
Albrecht.
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 Name.
Albrecht.
Yeah.
I should know this.
The common German.
Yeah. Okay. So I met Tony here in Bulgaria, and we're in Plovdiv, however you pronounce this. I can never get this right. And it turns out we have a lot in common as far as our thoughts on life and philosophies and travel. And so I thought it'd be really great to do this little dialogue back and forth. And Tony, you have a website that deals with one of the topics that I'm really passionate about, and that is finding a different path through life, an alternative script is the word you use. And tell me the name of your website and sort of the concept behind it.
The website is offscripting.com, and it's a site for a social venture that I started with my sister, Christy.
Mm-hmm.
Both she and I had a similar experience of walking a conventional path. Somewhere along the way, coming to find that it didn't quite fit us,
mm-hmm.
and then somewhere along the way going a different direction.
So the concept, as I understand it, is that our society and culture, particularly American culture and other cultures, has a prescribed script or formula that they like to have everyone conform to. And one of those scripts in America is get a college degree, get good grades in high school, go to college with a scholarship if possible, finance your college if you don't, get your degree, go work for corporate America, for a great corporation where you can move up through the ranks and have a salary with good benefits, get married, have children, get a house with a 30-year mortgage with a white picket fence and a dog and 2.5 kids. And that's sort of the formula for being successful in life and finding happiness. And the difficulty is for someone who chooses not to go that route, to not follow that script. What do? And your website sort of addresses part of that, as I understand it.
Yeah, and I think you laid it out really well. And off-scripting as an idea is a reaction to that script. Because for me, growing up, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, in a stable home. I was very fortunate, good education, good family, and that was the path. I mean, my choice was I can become a lawyer, I can become a writer, professor, a journalist, a doctor, but those were the choices. Right? There wasn't really any critical analysis of that general script, and I did follow it, and I think, as I said before, I think there are a lot of people for whom that script works, but there are a number of people for whom it does not. And if you're one of those people who, as we put it, you feel like you're living a script that was written for somebody else, maybe now more than ever before, we have ways to deviate from that conventional script and find ways to make it work and start to, one step at a time, chart a different course.
One of the underlying themes that happens with moving off script is usually some sort of life crisis. I call it a reset button experience, which I've talked about and written about. And that causes you to question your script that you're going on and whether it is time to take another path, to actually deviate off of that path. And one of those oftentimes is quitting your job. Quitting a 9-to-5 or a 40-hour week or 60 or 70-hour week job and going another a path. So I quit my job, now what do I do? Does your website address what to do, or does it deal with providing you with tools to look at that situation to determine a path that's correct for you, or maybe better for you, or better suited for you?
That's a good question. What we're setting out to do with auth scripting is first and foremost to put a culturally digestible framework around this transitional process that you understand intimately, that I've gone through. This one of going from a place of feeling stuck and doing something, and then whatever happens, somewhere along the way, something changes, and then you're off moving in a different direction. So that's number one, is just finding a way that this is a process that people have been doing for thousands of years. I used the story of the man who would become Buddha, as a good example from 3,000 years ago, right? And it's something that's just happening over and over.
And so, by the way, Buddha was this prince, really rich guy, and decided to give it up all, to quit his job and to go meditate to gain enlightenment. So that's an example of doing exactly this. Did you quit your job to sort of move to where you're at, or did you somehow change your environment? Or
I actually draw two different experiences of off scripting in a way, and the first one was actually coming to terms with a really unhealthy relationship to booze. So actually I haven't had a drink in 6.5 years, and I have found myself at a place where there were a lot of problems that was causing, and my sort of rock bottom moment, like where I don't know if that was my reset button, but it's the moment where something went off, okay, something needs to change, was sort of coming to in a jail cell on the island of Guam in 2009. And that began a process that led to what I refer to as a spiritual awakening, which simply means I had been asleep in some very important way, and then for whatever reason, and I think there's circumstances that lead to it, and there's also a lot of work that goes into it. You wake up and something changes, and then 3 years later, I'm a corporate defense attorney in St. Louis, and had arrived at the place I've been working to get to my whole life, and I had a good gig. I traveled all the time. My quality of life was very high, but something essential was missing, and there's this feeling of, is this what I've been working for? And I could see my future, and it didn't spark any joy. And that was when I really started putting in the work on, well, what else could be out there, and started shifting my mentality, which started shifting my behavior, which then ultimately led to making different decisions, saving money, simplifying. I know you're big on minimalism, and then started creating space that then eventually led to another of those light bulb moments where, oh, okay, I'm gonna take a year off from my job, and that was in 2012 that I had this moment. I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna happen. And then the next 6 months was a preparation period, and now that was 3.5 years ago that I stopped working as a full-time attorney, and my 1 year sabbatical has turned into 3.5 years.
Nice.
Yeah, no end in sight.
So 2 additional questions. One would be, someone going to your website, how can they get started, or what would they possibly expect to, as far as tools to help them with a life crisis or getting off script?
Well, what we do, my passion, you're also big into pursuing passions. Mine really is the process, the dirty work of getting in there, understanding where are we, how we get here, and what do we need to do to move to a different place.
Okay.
And so we have a few different ways that we do this. One, I have a personal consultant, what I call controlled demolition consulting, basically saying what is it that we need to blow up to be able to build something different in its place. Another way we do it is my sister and I have been hosting, basically we call them third space, and it's essentially a support group for people who are a little weird in some way. We do it virtually. Pretty much anybody is welcome. And we just sort of kick around big questions and play around in the deep end of the pool, go down different rabbit holes, just supporting each other as we can. And then we also do what we call more epic travel events. I just spent 2 months on the Camino de Santiago across Spain, and we led 2 groups. One was 5 weeks, one was 10 days, and just creating spaces where people can come together, really engage with these ideas, engage with other people who have sort of made it work, and see if that can't help, help things click in a way that lives can change.
That's fabulous. That's fantastic. And the last question I was going to ask you, just one basic piece of advice that you can tell viewers that would help them get started on thinking down this path of getting off script.
2 things. One, and I know that for me this has been huge, is take it easy on yourself.
Be forgiving. Forgive yourself.
That perfectionism is a really unhelpful thing. And I know it's something that a lot of us really struggle with. So just, we're good. Kurt Vonnegut said something along the way. I was saying, don't blame me, I just got here. And I think that's...
In Buddhism, it's about self-acceptance, or accepting the world around you, and that's a big skill. It's something that's difficult to obtain.
It's huge, because if you can't do that, how are you going to be able to move forward in a freer way, in a way where you're actually able to choose how you're going forward? And the other thing, there's a quote that I refer to all the time, and you may be familiar from an African-American writer, theologian named Howard Thurman, was saying, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. The value in that quote is that once I started prioritizing the things that, what I call yes moments, those moments that you're just alive and just yes, other things start to fall into place, and they start to unfold differently in a way that, so much of this off-scripting life, and you're spot on, an off-scripter, is about dancing with uncertainty and learning to just roll with the punches in unstable environments when we've given up a lot of that idea of conventional security.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk about your website and your thoughts on getting off script and some of the tools to help us go a different direction in our lives and figure out that a formulaic script that is prescribed for everyone doesn't necessarily have to be for you, that there's other ways to pursue your life, alternative scripts or alternative lifestyles. I like to call it intentional living, actually intentionally, purposely thinking about what you're passionate about and which barriers are in the way and removing those so you can move forward. You talked about the demolition, and that's a great explanation of doing that, of removing those barriers so that you're able to move forward and actually spend more time and more of your energy on what you're passionate about.
Beautifully expressed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pause.
These are the outtakes, the B-rolls that I'll use in the end.